If your mind feels like a radio stuck between stations, all static and competing voices with no off switch, you need to hear this. That constant mental chatter that won't let you enjoy a single moment of peace isn't a character flaw. It's not anxiety that needs to be medicated away. And it's definitely not something you need to fight against for the rest of your life. What if I told you that your overthinking isn't the problem? What if the real issue is that you've been trying to fix something that was never broken in the first place? Right now, your mind is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is nobody ever taught you how to work with it instead of against it. And that difference, that one shift in perspective, changes everything. Let's start with what's actually happening up there. Your brain isn't malfunctioning when it overthinks. It's trying to protect you. Every loop of thoughts, every scenario you replay, every conversation you rehearse in your head, your mind genuinely believes it's helping you avoid danger, prevent mistakes, and stay safe. Think about the last time you couldn't stop thinking about something. Maybe it was a text message you sent that didn't get a response. Your mind immediately started generating explanations. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad at me? Should I send another message? What if they're ignoring me on purpose? Within minutes, you've constructed an entire narrative based on absolutely no evidence. Your brain took one data point, a missing text response, and built a full movie around it, complete with dialogue and emotional subplots. But here's what's fascinating. Your brain thinks it's doing you a favor. It's convinced that by thinking through every possible scenario, it's preparing you for whatever comes next. This is why telling yourself to just stop thinking about it never works. You're essentially asking your security system to turn itself off while it's convinced there's danger. Your mind won't cooperate because it believes it's keeping you safe. Here's where it gets even more complicated. Most people who overthink don't just think about their problems, they think about thinking about their problems. You catch yourself spiraling, and instead of stepping back, you start a whole new spiral about why you're spiraling in the first place. Why do I always do this? What's wrong with me that I can't just let things go? Normal people don't obsess like this. Now I'm wasting time thinking instead of actually doing something productive. This thought pattern leads to this thought pattern leads to this thought pattern. Before you know it, you're 3 layers deep into overthinking. You're not just worried about the original thing anymore. You're worried about being worried, and then you're worried about being the kind of person who gets worried about being worried. It becomes this recursive loop that feels impossible to escape. And the frustrating part is that somewhere in the middle of all this mental chaos, you're fully aware of how ridiculous it is. You know you're overthinking. You can see yourself doing it in real time. But that awareness doesn't stop it. If anything, it makes it worse because now you're judging yourself for something you feel powerless to control. But here's what changes everything. Your overthinking isn't random. It's not just your brain being difficult for no reason. Every thought loop, every mental spiral, every scenario your mind obsessively replays, there's information hidden inside it. Your overthinking is actually trying to communicate something important, but it's speaking a language you haven't learned to understand yet. When you can't stop thinking about a conversation, your mind might be telling you there's something unresolved that needs to be addressed. When you replay potential future scenarios over and over, your system might be signaling that you need to make a decision, but you're avoiding it. When you obsess over past mistakes, there might be a lesson your subconscious is trying to integrate that your conscious mind keeps resisting. The thoughts themselves aren't the message, they're the messenger. And we've been so busy trying to silence the messenger that we never stop to ask what it's actually trying to deliver. Most advice about overthinking focuses on managing the symptoms. Distract yourself, practice mindfulness, do breathing exercises, and sure, these things can help in the moment. They're like taking pain medication. It dulls the sensation temporarily, but it doesn't address why the pain showed up in the first place. You might notice a pattern in your own life. The same types of thoughts keep coming back. You resolve to stop overthinking about relationships, and you do pretty well for a while, but then you just start overthinking about work instead. You manage to quiet your mind about one decision, and immediately it finds something else to obsess over. This happens because you're treating overthinking like it's the root problem when it's actually a symptom of something deeper. It's usually one of 3 things, and understanding which one applies to you is the first step to actually changing the pattern instead of just managing it better. The first possibility is that you're carrying unprocessed emotions. When feelings don't get acknowledged and expressed, they don't disappear. They convert into thoughts. Your mind starts generating elaborate stories and scenarios as a way to help you process what you're actually feeling underneath. The thinking is a detour around the feeling because somewhere along the way, you learned that thinking is safer than feeling. The second possibility is decision avoidance. Your mind loops because there's a choice you need to make, but you're terrified of making the wrong one. So instead of choosing, you keep analyzing. You convince yourself that if you just think about it a little bit longer, the right answer will become obvious. But the truth is, no amount of thinking will give you certainty about the future. At some point, you have to choose and deal with whatever comes next. The third possibility is that you're living in a chronic state of low-level stress. If your baseline is tension rather than calm, your mind will create things to worry about even when your life is objectively fine. This isn't about having problems to solve. It's about having a mind that's stuck in protection mode and needs problems to justify the state it's already in. So how do you stop overthinking when your mind won't shut up? You stop trying to make it shut up. That's the shift. You stop treating your thoughts as the enemy and start treating them as information. The next time you catch yourself in a thought spiral, instead of immediately trying to redirect or distract or shame yourself out of it, pause. Get curious. Ask yourself, what is this thought trying to show me? Not what is this thought about, but what is it trying to show me? If you're replaying a conversation over and over, maybe your mind is showing you that you need to have a follow-up conversation to get clarity. If you're obsessing over whether someone likes you, maybe your mind is showing you that you need to build more internal validation instead of depending on external approval. If you're stuck on a decision between two options, maybe your mind is showing you that you're not actually stuck on the decision. You're scared of disappointing someone regardless of what you choose. This approach flips the entire dynamic. You're no longer at war with your own mind, you're working with it. You're treating it like the incredibly sophisticated pattern recognition system that it is, instead of like a broken machine that needs to be fixed. Here's something else that makes a massive difference. Overthinking feels so overwhelming because thoughts seem to happen automatically. Something triggers you, and boom, instant spiral. You don't feel like you have any control over it. But there's actually a gap between the trigger and your response. It's incredibly small, maybe a fraction of a second, but it exists. And with practice, you can learn to widen that gap and use it. The moment you notice a thought pattern starting, that's your gap. Right there. Most people immediately engage with the thought, start following it down the rabbit hole, or try to push it away. Both responses keep you trapped in the same cycle. What if instead, you treated it like background noise at a coffee shop? It's there, you can hear it, but you don't need to tune into every conversation happening around you. The thought can exist without demanding your full attention and participation. This creates separation. You're not your thoughts. You're the awareness that notices thoughts. That might sound like semantic nonsense, but it's actually the difference between being swept away by the current and standing on the shore watching the water flow by. Once you've created that tiny bit of space, you can ask better questions. Is this thought based on facts or assumptions? Is this thought helping me move forward or keeping me stuck? Is this thought about the present moment or about a past I can't change or a future I can't predict? These questions aren't meant to stop the thinking. They're meant to change your relationship with it. You become the observer of your mental patterns instead of being trapped inside them. When you're deep in an overthinking spiral and need to interrupt the pattern, here are some approaches that actually work. First, change your physical state. Your thoughts and your body are connected in ways most people don't realize. Take the longest exhale you can manage. Physically shake out your arms and legs. Put your hands in cold water. Stand up and move to a different room. These aren't distractions. They're interrupts that help break the mental loop. Second, speak your thoughts out loud. The problem with mental loops is that they stay vague and circular. The moment you vocalize them, they become concrete and you can actually hear how they sound. You'll often discover that the thing you've been obsessing over for hours sounds completely different once it's spoken. Sometimes ridiculous, sometimes solvable, but almost never as catastrophic as it felt in your head. Third, time box your thinking. If you need to process something, give yourself dedicated time to think about it fully. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever feels right. During that time, think about it as deeply as you want. Then when the time is up, you're done until tomorrow. This satisfies your mind's need to process while preventing the all-day spiral. Your thoughts have a container instead of bleeding into every moment. When you find yourself trapped in your head, here's one question that cuts through almost any spiral. What would I do right now if I trusted myself completely? Not if you had more information, not if you knew how things would turn out. If you trusted yourself completely, what would your next move be? That answer, that gut instinct that shows up before your mind starts generating all the reasons why it might be wrong, that's usually your truth. The overthinking is just fear dressed up as thoroughness. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop thinking and start trusting. Trust that you have enough information. Trust that you'll handle whatever comes. Trust that your intuition has already solved the problem and your logic is still trying to figure out. Your mind won't quiet down until it knows you've got this. So show it. Make the decision. Have the conversation. Take the action. And watch how quickly the mental noise fades when you prove to yourself that you didn't need perfect certainty to move forward. And speaking of trusting yourself, I'm curious. What's the one thing you've been overthinking for way too long that you already know the answer to deep down? Drop it in the comments. Sometimes just admitting it out loud is the first step to finally letting it go. If you want to go deeper into rewiring these patterns and building a mind that works with you instead of against you, I've created a collection of ebooks that take everything we covered today and give you the practical tools to actually implement it. No fluff, just real strategies for people who are done spinning in circles. Links in the description below. Your mind isn't your enemy, it's just waiting for you to learn its language, and once you do, everything changes.